Hello and welcome to the premiere episode of PrimetimeUGC. I'm CaptPFDennis, and with me is my co-host RogueEnterprise. As this is the first episode, we thought we'd begin with a sort of mission statement. What we're doing, why we're doing it, and who we're doing it for. Well, to address the first point, we're bringing you a show about Star Trek Online's Foundry. The Foundry. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. This is a show for Foundry authors, by Foundry authors, completely created in, you guessed it, the Foundry.
That's right. Our focus here is on you, the Foundry author and Foundry mission player. We wanted to play and review your missions for you and sit down with authors to find out what the inspiration was behind a mission we love playing, get to know some of their tips and tricks, and ask them about their inspirations and, if we're lucky, their plans for upcoming missions. Ultimately, we want to help you potential authors learn how to make better stories with Star Trek Online.
We're also here to help you get some exposure for the missions that you've worked so diligently on. Keep your eyes peeled at the end of the show for a list of the latest new missions and content available in STO.
With free-to-play just around the corner, there are lots of new authors who would love to get in there and tell tales that could only exist in their imaginations until now. Well, now you have access to the Foundry, and we're here to help you tell those stories. This is PrimetimeUGC.
Let's talk a little bit about the different show segments on Primetime. We're always going to be delivering the latest news about STO's Foundry, making sure you stay in the loop for news that affects your mission-generating tool. We're also going to be interviewing some prominent names in the mission-generating community to give you an inside look at how they executed their missions. Each week we'll take an in-depth look at a Foundry mission and wrap things up with a list of new Foundry missions to play for the week, and a look at our community mailbag.
This week, we're going to be taking a look at the latest news first, but stay tuned for an interview with popular Foundry author Alamac30 and a look at his mission, City of the Polmar Re. Let's dig right into the news segment here on Primetime UGC. I think the biggest thing on everybody's mind right now is the imminent launch of free-to-play, which is going to be huge. But we're going to save the discussion of that for a little bit later with our guest host for this episode, Cerberus Films, even though it is some pretty huge news. One of the things our guest host isn't going to touch on, though, are bugs, and this is going to be something we're going to be keeping close tabs on you for this show. With free-to-play coming out very soon, the quality of the Foundry tool is going to have an impact on a lot of players and influence them on the perceived overall quality of the game. If you're an author watching this segment, keep a good eye out for all of these and design your missions with them in mind. We'll be announcing any fixes right here on this show. First up is BOF pathing. If you've ever used one of the walls with door assets in the Foundry, you know that BOFs can get stuck in the transition, and it can get pretty frustrating. Pathing can also get pretty unreliable on custom maps in general, so be sure to test your maps a lot, both before and after publishing for this one. Next up is what I'm calling the reset issue, which is the issue where in the Foundry preview mode, you've got to hit the little reset map button in order to get triggers and items based on triggers to function correctly. It's something that is just irksome enough to grind gears, and we've seen posts asking about it in the forums. It's a polish issue, probably something that should be taken care of when you enter Foundry preview in the first place. Last but not least for this week, we've got an issue with custom NPCs not showing up when using Demo Record. For those of you unfamiliar, Demo Record allows players to record maps in action using an external program. While it's not exactly a primary Foundry feature, many players use Demo Record to take footage of their missions for use with trailers. Shows like ours use it to paint a pretty picture of the missions we're taking a look at. It makes everyone's lives very difficult with that feature broken, and we'd like it fixed. And that's about it for bugs this week. If you've got anything to add that's irking you, email us at mailbag@primetimeugc.com, and we'll read your gripe on the air. But for now, we're going to start up a segment called Feature Request of the Week. In this segment, we're going to take suggestions that viewers send us and promote it as this episode's feature request. This week's request is for a 3D editor for the Foundry. It's no secret that the Foundry's current 2D interface can be a little inconvenient to say the least, especially when designing complex maps on both space and ground areas. A lot of the real grunt work of the map construction has to be done on a calculator, which makes it just plain not user-friendly. And that concludes this week's feature request of the week. And remember, if you have a feature suggestion you think deserves mentioning on the show, send it to us at mailbag@primetimeugc.com. Now I think we're ready to jump right into a discussion about the big news this week, the upcoming free-to-play launch. We'll tackle that issue with our special guest host, Cerberus Films. Take it away, Cerb.
On the eve of free-to-play, there isn't much new in the Foundry. Those of us who have been playing STO since its inception have already been using the current toolset for quite a while. Tomorrow, however, there will hopefully be a whole new group of potential authors who will want to tell their stories just as we did. To them, the Foundry is new territory. For us, it will mean new missions to play, and a bit of competition. I'm sure we'll see a few new exploit missions as well, but it is more than likely that this new influx will bring with it the next generation, if you will, of prolific and popular authors, whose ideas and stories will be a breath of fresh air to the community. There's been much controversy over this move to free-to-play, but since there is nothing we can do to change what is to come, we may as well concentrate on the positives. The new life that the Foundry may just experience is indeed a positive. There are upgrades planned for the Foundry in June, expanding our abilities to tell our tales. Only time will tell if the free-to-play model works for Star Trek Online. We sincerely hope that it will, and that STO will live on for many years to come. So we welcome all the new players that will be logging in tomorrow, eager to play and eager to build. They will look at this game as we did when it first launched almost 2 years ago, but they'll see a very different game to that which we saw. As much as we are disappointed at the content drought and the inconvenient downtimes during the crash of Season 4, so much has changed. Missions have been remastered, as was the tutorial. The DOF system has added another facet to the game, crafting has evolved and sector space was revamped. To us, these changes took place slowly, and the sale of Cryptic stalled many of their plans. It is a new year, and as Cryptic regains its footing, hires more employees, and the sale fades into memory, 2012 may very well bring STO back to the stature we once enjoyed, with new content and more upgrades. Yes, it is disappointing news that there will only be 2 new featured episodes, but it is very early yet, and perhaps that will change. In the meantime, we must guide as many new players toward the Foundry as we can. There are some great tutorials, and many Foundry veterans that are always willing to provide a helping hand, and some sage advice. There are also programs such as this one, dedicated to all things Foundry. Tomorrow, Star Trek Online goes free to play. Let's get busy making our own new content, and help the newest members of our community to do the same. I am Cerberus Films, a Foundry author, and this is PrimetimeUGC.
And for our premiere episode of Primetime UGC, we have the good fortune of being able to pick the brain of one of the Foundry's most prominent authors. Please join us in welcoming the man who brought us the spirits of Ramak Nor and the city of the Polmari, Mr. Alamak 30. Let's give him a big hand.
All right, so let's jump right in with some questions. So, Alamak, how long have you been playing STO, and so how much of that time has actually been building missions with the Foundry?
Well, I started, I think, in November or December of 2010, playing STO, and pretty quickly got onto Tribble and was using the Foundry on Tribble and just learning the tools and putting some test maps together and just filling them, completely filling them full of objects and interacts and characters and objectives, and just trying to learn the tools. And I kind of built part of my first mission, which was the Spirits of Ramak Nor. I kind of built some of that on Tribble, just as a sort of test to see how it would work. And then I once the Foundry went live to Holodeck, I built the mission for real on Holodeck.
So you were one of these early adopters that started building on Tribble first.
Yes, I didn't publish anything, so nobody would have seen anything that I was doing. It was just sort of messing around, It was just sort of making a map, filling it full of stuff, and just seeing what was possible and what wasn't really.
That filling the map up with assets was probably a lot of practice for what you have published, because those maps are phenomenal.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. But yeah, those early days, just throwing things on there and testing it all out was pretty important, because you learn what you can do, and also you learn what you can't do, which is probably more important. So it was good practice, yeah.
And then they began messing around with the Y coordinate, so that must have been fun.
Yeah, that was what. Well, let me tell you about the first map that you come to in my second mission, which is City of Pont-Marie, is the Arboretum, and that's been a really popular map actually. The guys from Stoked recorded a wonderful fly around of that map and put it on YouTube. But I actually built that map before Season 4 launched. Now, before Season 4, we couldn't edit the coordinates to 3 decimal places. Well, we could edit to 3 decimal places, but it would only display to 1 decimal place. And also, all of the objects on the Y coordinate would default to relative to terrain. We couldn't change that. And that Arboretum has a walkway with railings going down either side, and so they're actually windows. And it's built over a hillside, so placing all of those windows in to look like hand railings and to try to get them all at the same level when it was all defaulting to relative to terrain. And I wasn't able to see the coordinates to 3 decimal places, and I was having to work to that level of precision to get them all at the same height. So that was painful. That was all. Yeah.
What do you consider to be the perfect Foundry mission, as far as, say, balance between combat, puzzles, maps, etc.?
I think there has to be a balance. I'm not the person to illustrate that point, because my missions tend to be very, very combat light. That's a selfish thing. The only person that I'm writing Foundry missions for is me. So the Star Trek that I grew up watching and the Star Trek that I remember was so seldom about shooting. It was never about shooting really. But all the missions I played in STO were seldom about anything else. So the Foundry really was just my chance to indulge myself and make stories that were as Trek-like as I possibly could. And that meant indulging in the characters and the story and the locations and doing some sort of moral choices and prime directive stuff. And leaving the combat really light. But I think it depends what you mean by a perfect mission. I think that a mission that will grab 5-star ratings and be at the very top of the top rated list is going to be one that has a very finely tuned balance of combat and story and puzzles. It has to have a great story. It has to have memorable characters and great maps. And I think it has to have a balance of puzzles and story and shooting. And from a personal point of view, the thing that really makes me think, wow, this is a great Foundry mission, is if I'm sitting there seething with jealousy that I didn't make it myself, and thinking, oh,
that's a good side question. So is there a mission out there that
mission
has made you go, darn, I wish I could do that? Because your missions, are very detailed, very extensive, but who are you jealous of?
Well, I can tell you that the mission that made me really go, oh, I wish I'd done that, was the Infinitesimal Frontier.
That's a good one.
Where your ship gets shrunk down to the size of a nanoprobe or something, and you go inside a man, and you're sort of flying around in the arteries, and you're fighting immune cells. I mean, that was crazy inventive, just wildly imaginative and inventive. And I have to tell you, I did my degrees in biology and immunology, so I was being quite critical of the immunology in there as well. But it was good stuff. Scientifically, it
sounds like insult to injury.
I think above all else, that mission was the one that made me think, oh wow, I wish I'd done that.
All right, well let's move on to the next question. So you have 2 very popular missions out right now. So Spirits of Ramaknor and the City of the Pont-Marie. So when you were building those missions, did you expect them to be as popular as they turned out to be?
No, I certainly didn't. Particularly when I was building the Spirits of Ramaknor, I really didn't know how it was going to go down. It was sort of a big exercise of being selfish, actually, because I'm a huge DS9 fan. That's my Trek, DS9. so I wanted to tell a DS9 story, so it's very, very, very well woven into the backstory and the canon that was established around the Bajoran occupation and the Cardassians and that kind of thing. And it's long, and it's very wordy, and it's very light on combat. Not the ideal mission really for the mass market. It was just something I wanted to do for myself. So it was nice. It got really good reviews in Stoked, and that sort of propelled it up to the top of the top-rated list. And yeah, it's been really popular. And then with City of the Paul Marie, it wasn't that I expected it to be popular, but I was aware that there was probably an expectation out there that I would produce something as good as or better than Ramak Nor. So there was a bit of pressure. I certainly would never expect anything to be popular. You just throw it out there and see what happens.
I mean, you definitely have fans out there now. I mean, I know people on the forums that are like, oh my gosh, Alamac published his next mission. It's going to be awesome. So there's got to be some certain level of fan expectation out there.
I get that on Twitter as well, and I get emails in game. And just since I published Paul Marie, so the past 2 months, as I've been in game just playing, for example, in Q's Winter Wonderland or something, just being silly with my fleet and throwing snowballs around, random people have just sent me a tell saying, oh, hey, it's you. I really enjoyed Paul Marie. So, it's nice. It's nice to get messages like that.
Oh, there's a question. Anything in the works?
I'm working on my third mission now. So I've kind of been thinking about the story and doing some writing over Christmas, sort of through December and over Christmas. And just this weekend, I've actually been map building for the first one of the early maps, which has been really nice. So this next one is called The Mains of Balnar Moon, and it's I've kind of written the summary, the mission summary that shows up in the mission journal. So what happens is that there's a moon, Balnar Moon, which is covered in an ocean, so the entire surface is covered by ocean. I don't know whether that's scientifically plausible. I certainly don't care. And the only structure on this moon is one platform. It's like a sort of offshore oil rig type platform. It's a Starfleet research platform. And this moon orbits a gas giant planet. It's been moving through the shadow of that planet, so it's been like in a permanent eclipse for the past few months. And so the moon has gotten really cold and the ocean's frozen. And the station has effectively been abandoned to a team of caretakers, and the mission starts with the player flying off to the moon to go and see how the caretakers are. The moon's about to emerge from the shadows, so shadow season is over, and you have to go back and see how things are.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Yeah, and you heard it here first.
All right, well, that about wraps up our interview with Alamac 30. So thank you very much for coming on the show and having a chat with us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Good evening and welcome to Bite Size UGC. I'm Rogue Enterprise, and with me as always is Captain PFDennis. The subject of our review this week is the City of Paul Marie by Alamac 30. This is his second mission after months in the making. Let's jump right in with the story.
This mission centers around a mysterious and ancient culture that invites all sentient species to an intergalactic get-together every 216 years for a little mingling and some free advanced technology, all just a wormhole away.
This tale is told in about an hour, though it seems to move quickly and the objectives are clearly defined. The details that move the piece along are gathered throughout the mission by conversations with the other guests at the interspecies soiree.
The plot was not overly intricate, and some of the more pivotal information seemed a bit too easy to come by. Who knew getting a Klingon drunk could be so effective? Also, introducing a race that gives away free technology every couple of 100 years throws established canon for a loop. But the overall effect on the story was pretty minor, considering the marvelous execution. We gave it 4 out of 5 stars.
Moving on to map design. It is difficult to play this mission start to finish without stopping to marvel at your surroundings at least once. There are points at which you must literally pause to take it all in. Alamac advertises that it took months to complete, and one does not have to guess as to the reason. The evidence of dedication and attention to detail are everywhere. From a shimmering city in space to a multi-layered and transparent interior, you'll understand why we gave it 5 out of 5.
On the technical level, there are some fine examples of Alamac's expertise. Some effects were subtle and had us muttering wow and cool in several places. Some uses were more awe-inspiring, including running around an embattled starship and getting beamed to safety after free-falling down a turbolift shaft. It is further proof of just how well planned everything was. We had no trouble giving another 5 stars in the tech category.
Moving on to difficulty. To say that this mission was difficult would be grossly inaccurate. The few mobs that you do encounter are in the right place at exactly the right time. They are not terribly difficult to defeat, but they are necessary. Every challenge belongs just where it is. The battles were fun and not laborious. Another 5 out of 5.
And that wraps up our review of the City of Pol Marie by Alamac 30. As you can see by the bite-sized breakdown, this one ranks high on our list.
Once again, support the Foundry by going and playing these missions for yourself. This has been Bite-Size UGC. Now let's go through a list of recently released missions. As usual, you can contribute to this list by posting on the official message boards of the game in the Foundry Mission subforum, on the thread entitled Promote Your Foundry Mission. This list also appears weekly on the StarbaseUGC.com site, so don't hesitate to speak up.
And as of this episode's release, here are the newest missions that were submitted. On the Fed side, we have The Siege, Part 1, by Cruise In. Alliance Severe, by Altair 145. From Both Ends of Time, by Haurian. And Breen Beachhead, by Greg 247. And right now there is nothing new on the KDF side, sorry to say.
As a special service to viewers of the show, if you mail us at mailbag@PrimetimeUGC.com with your mission name, author name, and a 1-sentence description of your mission, we will be sure to include that extra information in the broadcast. We want your Foundry missions to be played.
That about wraps up Episode 1. If you have any feedback on our show, have suggestions for missions or authors of particular interest, or if you have a suggestion for a Foundry feature request, send us an email at mailbag@PrimetimeUGC.com. We'll do our best to read your feedback here on the air.
Thank you for watching and tune in next time. This has been Primetime UGC.